I guess the first big story that happened today was Microsoft is one step closer to buying Blizzard. Of course, this is all part of the industry consolidation that everyone's talking about for the game industry, and it's part of. I think it's related to something I mentioned before, which is we have an issue where a lot of stuff, there's just a lot of games being published out to Steam and app stores on both iOS and Android, and a lot now even on the Nintendo Switch, which used to be a really walled off garden. And with all that noise, it's really hard for people to punch through it and become successful. A lot of them have to go through YouTubers, and YouTubers have a very specific show to put on. So a lot of games are being kind of developed in a way that YouTubers can use them to be funny or entertaining. And so we've got a lot of noise in that respect. There's a lot of games that are getting published with Unity Asset Store stuff. They just pull some stuff off the Asset Store they pay a few bucks for, throw it all together, do some very light coding, and then they put out a game in less than a week. And sometimes they're really successful on YouTube. There's a lot of channels out there constantly looking for more content and games to play that are different. And so that constant stream is really nice. That being said, that makes for a lot of noise in the game industry. Lots and lots of noise on all platforms. We have a lot of adult games coming out of nowhere. My wife complains a lot about how many adult games she's getting on Steam, even though she has so many filters to block them. They keep coming through. And I think it's kind of the joke now. Everybody kind of sees that. So with all of that madness, big companies, they have the money to push their games, to push their products. They can market to millions of people. They have hundreds of millions of dollars to put into marketing and research and influencer campaigns, lots of influencer campaigns. A lot of streamers are paid to pay those the games to promote them. And sometimes I don't know if the streamers even mention that they are paid to promote them. And if they do, it's probably at the beginning of the stream. And a lot of people aren't there for that, so they just think that the streamer's like playing this game that they really just found and enjoyed, when those streamers are paid a ton of money to stream. And I know this because I've worked with companies that do those kinds of campaigns. And they're a valid marketing campaign because you can get a lot of people to play your game using this technique. So how does that relate to Microsoft buying Blizzard and consolidating of the game industry? Well, like I said in some previous videos, these companies are able to spend millions and millions of dollars to get eyeballs on their games, to buy their games, and they make tons of money. And all the little companies that can't compete with that wealth have a very hard time, even with really incredible games. There's a lot of incredible games that just nobody ever hears of, or that never can get completed because they can't get the funding. And so these big companies get bigger. They spend a lot of money to make a lot of money, and then they spend that money to buy up all the other medium-sized businesses. I think every company I've worked at for the last 3 companies, all 3 of them were purchased by a much larger company, and one of them got purchased twice by a large company. So it's a very real thing, the consolidation of all these companies. So the European Commission has approved Microsoft's Blizzard purchase. Some other European country, I don't know what it was, probably England or something, denied it. But I don't know how this works, but it still goes through, and they're still going to be working towards it. I am frankly a little bit ambivalent to big companies buying up other big companies, or big companies buying up medium-sized companies. It's a great way for developers if they get equity in a medium-sized company. It's a great way to get an extra paycheck. And it's kind of just the way the system is. What can we do? We can't tell people to stop developing indie games, or we can't make them promise that they'll spend more than a week on an indie game before they publish it to Steam or any other game store. So just getting past that noise is already a high bar. Even if you do a Kickstarter campaign, a lot of the times your game has to be some kind of meme to just to stand out and punch through all that noise. And that can be frustrating for people who don't want to make meme games. They want to make games that maybe tell a story that means something to them, or make a game that's a story for children, or they want to make a game that's more puzzle related, but there's no gimmick and it's just a bunch of series of different kinds of puzzles, that sort of stuff. And those developers are basically developing games for themselves and their friends because it's a hard market to compete with. I'm like I said, I'm ambivalent to big companies buying up other big companies. I think the consolidation just happens. Maybe it'll lead to some kind of tipping point where people get tired of it. Maybe developers will get tired of making stuff. Of course, then we get into the whole AI stuff and then putting AI into games for really quick and easy content. So I don't know. It could be noisy forever. I don't know. Maybe we can band together, all of us game developers who spend a good quality amount of time on our games. There's a lot of us. So if we got together and, bought and sold each other's games and kind of collaborated in that way to create our own kind of group marketing strategy in that way, maybe that's the way we can punch through with great game ideas and stop leaving it just to the big guys to get to be able to get their games out there.